and welcome back, Smite fans, to the EU SCC Championships. We are going into our fourth and final match of the day in our second of the qualifiers of these matchups today. The winner of our next match will be moving on to the final stage of play. The loser will still have to play a little bit more tomorrow. I'm J-Mac. I got Trelly joining me on the desk to kind of help me go through some of these matches. So we got a big one here. We got another one of our top EU teams, Trelly, with Highland Ravens going against Gilded Gladiators, the 5th seed in here. So the gap a little bit closer than what it was from our previous match of the 1 versus 6. But I think also this is maybe, kind of as alluded to at the end of the desk, might be something for Highland Ravens to prove.
As far as I'm concerned, we're just in upset central. So there's never a guaranteed win, and the Highland Ravens should be concerned, but also confident going into a matchup like this. As you said, they've been playing decently well, so that's something that, you know, they do have something to prove. That's what you said. I'm sorry, I put words in your mouth. They have been playing as a point to where this is like a match they should be winning, and they should be winning it cleanly.
Yeah, because if my memory serves correct, Charlie, the only team that Highland Ravens lost to during phase number 3 of the SCC was over against Hex Mambo, so we'll see if they can at least reprise their victories they've had throughout. But let's take a look at the bracket, see what you missed today, what you can still expect from the remainder of these groups. We just finished Group A, at least most of Group A. Tomorrow, we'll come back over to them with Niflheim Wargs and Personnel. Wargs falling down to the Hex Mambo, though it did manage to take a game off of Hex Mambo. Probably the most impressive part for Niflheim Wargs this tournament, not only being able to upset the Styx Ferrymen, take the 4th seed down, but now also being able to take a game from Hex Mambo. Though with that win, Hex Mambo advanced the elimination stage. That'll be a whole nother set of brackets that come out with that one. But now we jump in towards Group B, the second of these groups of 4 that come out here, where we did have a couple of other squads out there already be sent home. Thunderhead, the first of those groups to end up eating the dirt. They have to go home. Their competitive life as far as the SOC, SCC, is done for Season 9. Maybe we're going to see some of those players back in Season 10. I wouldn't be surprised on that one. But now we jump over to the upper side of the bracket. Highland Ravens and Gilded Gladiators. Loser of this match faces off against the Aru Scorpions. Winner will advance on to the second half of the bracket.
And you're telling me they're going to eat dirt?
Dirt.
We're forcing them to eat dirt
Maybe
if they lose?
even mud, depending on if it's raining or not.
I love the idea that we just
could be dust, depending on if they're
whoever
sand.
loses, you don't just get to go home, or you don't have to go home. You also have to eat dirt. That's the way you get your ticket back.
Give them a cup of dirt. You remember buying those at the restaurants when you were a kid? You're just like, what is a cup of dirt? And they bring it. It was one of the best things you could ever have.
Oh yeah.
If you haven't ever had a cup of dirt before, go ahead. Man, just out of context, that's the sentence. So if you never had a good cup of dirt, go do that. But one team that's been doing really well in the EU SCC, again, the only time that they have dropped again was against Hex Mambo. It is the Highland Ravens over here. They've had a bit of a resurgence in phase number 3. And I kind of want to talk about Xngnnah a little bit over into the solo lane, because he's been having a quiet but also very strong performance for this team. You know, we see the flashiness of players like adapting. We talk about Angry all the time. We even know all about VaporishCoast and the success he's had over. But Xngnnah, not necessarily new to this league, but kind of newer to the top end of competitive play, has really been impressive for this team.
Yeah, I would say so as well. A consistent force over in that solo lane, that's kind of what you want. I mean, it's nice to have the flashy plays. It's nice to have these pop-up performances, but the picture of consistency is what I look for in a solo laner. Can I look over and see that you're going to be ahead, or relatively even at the very least? You're going to be that driving force that can pressure carries. You can make those rotations in, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes into the game towards its objectives and make those game-changing plays. And I think that's what Xngnnah does here for the Highland Ravens. You still have that opportunity to where adapting can go over the solo lane early on and try and go for a gank. But if not, you can just leave Xngnnah alone on an island, and he'll be just fine getting that, fending for himself over in that lane.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, is being able to find and kind of have a solo laner that you can just do that. Be like, hey, I can't make it over to your blue, or hey, I'm not going to be able to make it over to your lane anytime soon because duo's kind of getting dunked on. And, well, for Xngnnah and at least a lot of the other solo laners in this league, in the EU SCC, they are fine being left on island. They don't need somebody to come over there and babysit. They don't need someone to constantly be dropping all these blue buffs. And I think a lot of what we talked about with Xngnnah can also be similarly echoed for lestimics over there, who's also been a bit of a unique player in his own right into the solo lane, bring out some different picks. I mean, whenever I think of Hercules solo for SCC, lestimics is one of the first players that does come to mind. Was able to get a nice little steal with a boulder yesterday to it. But his willingness to kind of play a little bit outside of the box, while sometimes it can hurt the squad, more often than not ends up being a huge benefit for his team.
Yeah, I would say so as well. It's nice to see these kind of plays on the Hercules just because Hercules is not a character that's in the meta at the moment. Some people, solo laners specifically in the EU SCC, are piloting, but I echo what you're saying. A little bit of a different style of God Pool can always help you out in the solo lane, bring you up against something you're not expecting. Those kind of plays always do start to add up, and I think lestimics has been having a pretty solid tournament here, a good tournament run. I've been impressed with these rotations, these early on rotations, and the fact that there's always going to be some follow-up, I think, from lestimics, and that's something you need to look for when you're looking for these late game team fights from a solo laner. So if we're looking at both of them, very similar play styles.
And especially when you're coming for a team like Gilded Gladiators, one that's kind of changed up a lot since we saw them all the way back at the qualifier stage for SPL when that team didn't make it through, and then phase number 1 kind of hit middle of the pack, and we started seeing some change. Some of the core players from Gilded Gladiators started being removed from there, and having lestimics kind of be a consistent point coming in towards this roster has really seemed to have helped these guys out. It's given MastKiII a little bit more confidence over there into the jungle, allowing him to kind of do what he wants. In kind of that same vein, you know, whenever you talk about players like adapting, just let him pick what he wants, whatever he's comfortable on. lestimics and Xngnnah over in their solo lanes are looking pretty nice. We're going to see what does come out in picks and bans for game number 1 between the Gilded Gladiators and the Highland Ravens. Winner goes to the elimination stage bracket. Loser has to face off against the Aru Scorpions to see who will be the next team going home from the elimination stage in this portion at the very least. That'll be played out tomorrow, so still a little bit of time before we do get to see those matchups. But maybe no surprise in some of these bans. Maybe the Bologna is a little bit questionable there, at least to me, Charlie, but Tier, no surprise, he's kind of been a menace for these EU solo laners, and Ishtar has just been the top hunter so far.
Yeah, I think Xngnnah just has been having a decent performance on the Bologna. It's one of those picks that, you know, we were talking about consistency, and if you're playing the same god, clearing the same way, doing the same things, it's going to go well. And I think the Highland Ravens have taken a page out of the Gladiators book and said, hey, well, if you're going to ban our Bologna, we're going to ban your Hercules. We're going to try and throw you off your game. It seems like that's been the same style of bans for both one of these squads, as well as just Daji is a very solid jungle in the meta currently, and of course Yemoja, also a very solid support in the meta currently. So the Gladiators have that option. Are they going to go for this Cernunnos that has been so highly coveted between pretty much every team in the EU SCC because Ishtar's gone? Or you can just go for the Cupid if you have your pick there. Those are usually what we look for, but it looks like taking away Adapting's Kuang, a pick that MastKiII also likes, is going to be the call. And I don't mind that at all because you're still getting either the Cern or the Cupid, unless, of course, the Ravens just grab them both. And then you also put Adapting a little bit off his game as well.
And this is kind of where the fun of some of these tournaments come through. We always talk about, you know, when you get to like best of 5s and you get to game 4, game 5, you start seeing some real change-ups in the draft, a little bit more targeted. Even in tournament settings like this one, where you've only seen a couple of games so far between these teams, but you've been playing against them for the entire season, you know that a lot is on the line for these guys, you know, a chance to be able to go to the World's qualifiers. We see shift-ups. I mean, we went from going almost exclusively like dual lane style of bans, banning out Hunters, banning out Guardians. Now we're seeing a little bit more targets towards these solo lanes. Does open up the Kuang, as you mentioned there, and then Athena Cupid for the Highland Ravens. Quick answer back, though, this Fafnir has become a very popular pick, Charlie, for the EU scene.
Yeah, it definitely has, and I think this has a decent matchup into the Cupid. It's sort of, I'm not going to say, they kind of have counters for each other, right? Because if you go into that dragon form first, you're getting Fields of Love. You are getting crippled, but if you wait until the cripple field goes down and then you channel it, you can always immune that ultimate. So, going to be a smart call. Looks like the Gladiators are going to take the Cern and give the Cupid over to the Ravens, but also grab themselves the set, a pick that has been pretty nasty, and you can play it in a couple different roles. You can play it at mid, solo, or in that jungle, but the way that Adapting's been playing, I wouldn't hate seeing him on a set either, just being able to absolutely run through a game. You've got that slow immunity, and you're able to just run away from an Kuang, because usually it's like skewer, run away, and then once that water illusion's down, you can just use that Kingslayer ultimate and try and take that fight.
Osiris and Amaterasu, the bans for the Highland Ravens. Meanwhile, on the other side so far, Thor for the Gilded Gladiators banned away. Either not convinced that this set is going to be going over to the jungle, maybe trying to kind of force it over in towards that role, or just taking some extra safety precautions up against a player like Adapting, because Adapting and Thor are two names that are just synonymous within each other when you talk about the top level of Smite play.
Why'd you just say the same name twice?
My mistake there. I didn't mean to get a little redundant there. So we'll move on. We'll move on from Adapting, and we'll talk about the Hades ban instead, which is something that's kind of been back and forth, a little hot, a little cold. Seen some success from it, but it's been mostly seeing teams ban that one out. That opens up for Xing for the Highland Ravens. Now I'm curious if this will be Athena or Xing solo? Because we've seen a lot of flexibility with both of these.
We certainly have, and that's the thing about the Xing. It was picked before the double ADC got locked in, but when you see Kuang and you see Cern, you sort of assume that there's going to be double hunters coming, right? Because you're like, okay, Kuang's got that magical damage taken care of. They've got a Fafnir as well. They're probably looking for another auto attacker, which Furious Roar rather, from the Xing is going to do just fine with mitigating some of that auto attack damage. And it looks like we were right to question if this set was going over towards adapting, because the Batz is going to get locked in. And that is definitely more of an adapting pick if I saw one. So a lot of team fight presence there, a lot of CC with the Athena, the Cupid, the Xing and the Batz. And then you got Set in the backline that's going to say, hey, you got them all lined up for me? I'm going in with that Kingslayer.
Yeah, it really feels like Set is going to be the one who's going to force Aegis's over against the opposite side, where everybody else on the Highland Ravens is dedicated towards that CC burn, getting those purification beads out there. It feels like anybody on the Ravens can get this team fight started. Can the Highland Ravens hold on to their number 2 seed, get a win up here against the lower seed? We'll have to find out in game number 1 of the Gilded Gladiators and the Highland Ravens.
Yeah, game number 1 is going to tell us a lot about this set. The Gladiators, a team that have never shied away from these types of moments, but the Ravens will be favored as Dolson, Mifflin, and Doug, one final time today, will go into game. And Miff, this is one that the Highland Ravens gotta be favored in over the Gilded Gladiators, but we have seen a highly competitive Gladiators team already this weekend.
We have, but looking at this Glads draft, I love 3/5 of it, Dave, and I'm sure you could identify immediately where my eye is going. Lestimics and MastKiII's selection, the Chaac and solo.
Yep.
I think that could be a point of contention. Because of the matchup, though, up against Xing, you're not overly concerned about it. Xing not one that's going to be just jamming your lane in and looking for invades on repeat. Oh, it's actually Athena, excuse me. No, I don't love that either, actually.
We've seen Athena solo do well.
I mean, yeah, Athena's not... how she does well is rotations to the rest of the map. It's more so about getting involved in that mid 3v3, mid 4v4. And I think that should be a concern more so than the Xing, actually, yeah. Considering Chaac largely immobile on rotation. And then the Kuang, too. MastKiII strikes me as a player that wants to get active throughout the early, has been a consistent, aggressive win condition for his team. I don't see him performing that style of play on an Kuang. Not for the first 10 or so levels, at least. Could be that the Gilded Gladiators have been developing a new style coming into this week, but this seems to be a departure from their standard. Whereas the Highland Ravens, I mean, this is just Ravens doing Ravens.
Yep.
That's so Raven.
You're not allowed to say that.
Excuse me, why not?
You're getting DMCA.
I didn't sing the song.
No, you're right. Okay, nope, we're about to go down a rabbit hole. Now, adapting on the Batz, Miff. Has beads early on here, but adapting earlier on in the set that we saw the Ravens play. Was able to rewind the clock a little bit, a guy who loves to remain competitive here with his Ravens teammates. You getting level 5 vibes from this Batz? You thinking Fear No Evils as soon as they're available?
I would like to see adapting run down MastKiII at every single buff, drop Fear No Evil and say, good luck fighting me, you're Kuang in the early game. Otherwise, not the easiest targets for adapting to consistently gank. Lestimics maybe throughout the early, especially with his Transcendence start. Rottwen maybe before he ticks over to level 5. But it's MastKiII getting aggressive first. No Dragon Call. Still able to take the fight, though.
A little chunky damage into adapting. Instead of adapting, maybe trying to maintain some of that HP for a blue buff defense, but
giving it up.
Arcana over in lane, the Athena maybe not able to scrap quite as effectively as the Chaac is this early in the game, and kind of knows this is going on, so knows MastKiII somewhere in behind him. Yeah, no further fight. You talk about level 5, of course, then you have to talk about the Athena myth, and you mentioned the rotations, things like that out of solo. I think worth mentioning, it is teleport for Kana, and that's, I think, at the SPL level where we saw most of the effect, where Athena could ult out and then just teleport back to lane, and even if you leave that skirmish empty-handed, you can still get back in time to get your farm.
So it's about not getting poked out too consistently so that you're not forced to teleport back to lane for farm. Want to hold on to it in a post-Defender of Olympus situation. That does give lestimics a little bit of leeway to play a bit more aggressively with his own HP bar. Trading out with Xngnnah, poking out, going to be inherently more valuable for the Chaac, because Chaac does not need to get active elsewhere on the map, whereas Xngnnah makes his money in every lane but solo lane. And already being forced to teleport back to his lane, not even finishing up that first item, gives a significant advantage over to lestimics.
At least for now, looks like defensive for Xngnnah. We've seen Athena solos just build full-on damage, which, was that Sot who was playing that with just full damage builds? Athena was crushing in that game, but obviously a small target to hit with that type of build and not a whole lot of room for error. So Xngnnah, at least for now, sticking with the defensive side of things. It'll help out in lane. I mean, a Chaac, pretty good at bullying. Maybe so is MastKiII, who's rotated in behind Coast and Silence. Actually, there's no rotation in. It's instead all the pressure towards the Interceptor, and it'll get confirmed by the Gilded Gladiators. I was wondering, Miff, if that would have been a gank, but MastKiII unconcerned.
Yeah, not really much reason for Kuang to force the issue early, especially against iSilenced and Vaporish, who both had access to their beads. Sotos stands his ground. Don't often see that. Cern taking the fight to the set is still forced to retreat with adapting, rotating through. Good luck getting back to your buff in time, Sotos. You either lose the wave or you lose farm on buff.
Oh, might lose both.
Might lose his
Loses
life.
a handful of minions underneath the tier 1 tower and his red buff, so adapting just with presence makes life difficult for the Gilded Gladiators over in mid, and now it's a rotation to the purple buff. So we haven't seen ganks, but we have seen buff pressure, and a fantastic rotation through from adapting, though. The Hog from Rottwen will secure the buff. Still adapting, making his presence felt here in the early goings of Game 1.
I like the idea to go for the leap there. If you're worried about Ferocious Roar out-confirming, you leap to desync your auto attacks, you avoid the damage as well. Unfortunately for adapting, Hog was the selection, and there's really nothing adapting could have done about that besides just be at the purple buff a little bit sooner. So by the time Rottwen had made that rotation, adapting loses his opportunity. Clean defensive play from the Gilded Gladiators, but still worth adapting's time. Had he not been there to force out that Hog, he get to go back to base, sell it, get a little bit of gold back. So essentially takes like 60 gold out of Rottwen's pocket. Small play, but those add up over time.
Does add up over time and changes the ebb and flow of what this Fafnir is going to be able to do at some point. And Fafnir feels nice, I think, for the Gilded Gladiators here, Miff. If you're a team that likes playing together as 5, you like to wait a little bit later on into the game and force down objectives. Double ADC composition, you got Sotos, you got Totti. Maybe that's where Rottwen's trying to find some value.
Yeah, some rotations early, I think, could do well for the Fafnir. But you're really just playing around objectives, I think, with this composition, Dave. You've got heavy auto attacks from the Kuang, double Hunter composition as well.
Yep.
Could really make those neutral objectives go down quickly, given the opportunity. But it doesn't seem to me that he's itemized towards it early. I would expect Shoguns in next slot, but with Shell there, had it been like a Bracer of Radiance or maybe a Frenzy, you could expedite that play.
Well, there is not a lot of magical damage that the Gilded Gladiators, Myth, maybe need to be super worried about. Got Athena and Soul, you got Double Guardian. Angry on set out of the mid lane, so the overwhelming burst damage is going to be all physical oriented. I think the Gilded Gladiators have shown their hand here a bit as far as pace of play. They've got a stacking item in every single lane. Transcendence up top, Book of Thoth out of the jungle for MastKiII. Whereas, yes, some stacking for the Highland Ravens, but not for adapting. He's got Brawler's Beat Stick. Angry now. A chance to get aggressive on Sotos, who will simply dash away. And then Xngnnah with the Breastplate of Valor, so get some more CDR going. So the Gilded Gladiators, Myth, may be happy to slow down the pace, get some of those items stacked up and ready, or maybe lestimics will feel the pressure of starting with a damage item early. Gonna get pushed back by adapting.
The fun thing about Transcendence on Chaac is that his heal scales with power, and this early in the game, healing is essentially effective defense, effective HP in some of these fights, so having the ability to get a bit more oomph from it, I think, gives you a good deal of value from Transcendence in first slot. If a normal warrior goes towards Transcendence, you're thinking, okay, he is incredibly squishy. It's a way bigger deal. For Chaac, you're doing more damage, you're healing more. I've got no complaints.
lestimics was missing about a third of his HP a moment ago and heals it all back up with one rotation of the heal. Xngnnah's going to have to work overtime in order to poke out this Chaac. The chalice empty, yes, but heals on cooldown feel just fine for lestimics. Now, we've talked a lot about the Highland Ravens in a very similar way as we've talked about a team like HexMambo Myth, where you know, a lot of the EU SCC fine with slower paced games, but feels like HexMambo and the Ravens don't mind forcing things a little bit. Ravens don't seem too worried about really setting a high octane pace here in game 1.
Yeah, nonplussed so far. You've got some heavy scalers on the side of the Highland Ravens. Adapting, I think, probably waiting on this next item to get hyper aggressive. Sotos just keeps staying his ground. Dash canceled.
Oh, that's fantastic from iSilenced, and pace set from the Highland Ravens. A gank in the mid. Sotos escaped death a couple of times, but this time adapting and iSilenced simply chose the mid laner to die. So now back to the red buff. Get another red buff invade for adapting. I think Sotos got the one in between the original steal, but will lose the second and the fourth red buff of the game, it looks like. D-transform from Rottwen is in a terrible spot. Nearly was. Super unlucky for the support, but will escape, and just the one kill for the Ravens.
Adapting got scared off by MastKiII there. He summoned up the dragons. Adapting said, all right, I'm not going to stick around that long. And then the burst from the skewer from Angry puts him, Rottwen that is, into kill range, but too little too late as Adapting had already stepped away. I would have dropped that fight sooner to you, Dave. I didn't expect Sotos to legitimately just stand there like a turret and keep shooting, but he did. And it's I think maybe the only losing line for him. Getting that dash canceled was the only way that Sotos dies.
Yep.
And iSilenced makes it happen.
iSilenced, so strong on the Xing Chen, but now on Silenced side of the map, it'll be a purple buff invade for the Gilded Gladiators as Coast has been pushed back by Totti. This is a pretty dynamic, I think, Hunter matchup here, Myth. VaporishCoast, such a fun player to watch for this Highland Ravens team.
Pretty history moments on that player as well.
That's right. Well, I'm not going to bring him up. You can if you feel like it. But Totti for this Gilded Gladiators team also has been one of the pillars of the Gladiators over their last couple of years of SCC experience with one another. Early advantage to Totti just a moment ago, but tilts back to VaporishCoast as he didn't have to split any farm. That'll be a contentious battle in both of the games, I imagine.
I wonder if Totti is even at all interested in taking the battle up against Vaporish, though. Charybdis, generally a safer pick, pretty decent at clearing those waves from under tower. VaporishCoast, much more, I suppose, apt to go for the 1v1, bit more PvP-centric on the Cupid. When I see Charybdis on a composition like this and the scaling that the Gilded Gladiators are going for, it just feels to me like each one of their lanes is uniquely, I suppose, built to extend the duration of this match, play around the stacking, play around this Kuang that's going to become a menace as the game goes on. And then the rest of your composition starts to gear up as well. We had talked about it a bit earlier, but this double Hunter, when flanked by the Fafnir, could really make things quick around neutral objectives. So long as the Gilded Gladiators can prevent things like this happening on map, and they can't prevent this one, Gold Fury to the Highland Ravens, 0 fight back from the Gilded Gladiators. That's how they want to play. They want nothing happening on map. If the Gilded Gladiators could have loaded in at 20, 25 minutes, they absolutely would have. It's on the Highland Ravens. They've got the onus to make things happen. They have to force the issue. Be it around Gold Furies like that, or now Pyromancers is the only real viable option.
I was wondering if the Gladiators would double back for the Pyromancers. So the Ravens get Gold Fury while a few members of the Gladiators are looking at a blue buff invade. Looks like they being the Gladiators, were at least successful in that, but MastKiII then turns his eyes towards Pyro, doesn't end up taking the Pyromancer down. So the Gilded Gladiators just straight up lose a Gold Fury. And I suppose do pick up a blue buff, but it gets split 3 or so ways. Maybe a Highland Ravens favored trade. Now, both of the Hunters are opting for the same build to start off game number 1 here. Both Devourer's Gauntlet, both Shadow Steel Shuriken. So if they both end up going into a little bit more crit, we'll see. Spectral Armor could be very, very high value for the Highland Ravens. You might think Angry's under pressure, but that often means that Silence somewhere close by and Angry just playing a bit further forward to try to engage. Sotos has beads. Sotos no longer has beads. And a value trade there for Silence on the Xing Gen.
Yeah, Soto's just walking a bit too far up to follow up with the Bramble Blast. Rottwen gets a bit aggressive there. Had he stepped up with the hammer and not had anything behind him, likely would have gotten turned on. Soto's forced to step forward by his support's positioning, and Silence takes notice.
MastKiII over to solo. Xnnahh has been able to free farm throughout most of this game. Will now have to ult away. It's ulting over to left. So you do effectively get Xnnahh out of lane. A blue buff invade on the back end from the Gilded Gladiators. This is when you expect this Chaac to start to pull a bit further ahead. Yes, how can we convert that into a lead? Let's head to the Pyromancer, say the Gilded Gladiators. We have not seen a big Fear No Evil from adapting yet this game. I'm not sure we will on this fight. The Gladiators, the slightest sign of the Ravens showing up, pull the eject handle and back away.
Yeah, I think the Gilded Gladiators, had they moved in towards the Pyromancer a bit more quickly, likely could have stuck to it. Can't let this happen, though. Highland Ravens, they pull it. Rottwen knows, and Rottwen knows he can't do anything on his own. Lets this one fall down as well. The Highland Ravens, with 1 kill, and keep me honest, 8 minutes ago, I want to say, with 1 kill 8 minutes ago,
Yeah, about.
have taken both objectives with 0 fight back since. And I understand the idea from the Gilded Gladiators. We're a late game scaling composition. We're built around the double hunter. We want to play around the Fafnir. We need our items, we need our relics. You have to do something to get yourself there. You need to make some sort of bridge plays to get you into that mid, into the late game. If you take the path of least resistance throughout the entirety of the early, the Highland Ravens are going to slowly accumulate a massive lead. It doesn't matter how strong your composition is at 30 minutes. If you make it at 30 minutes, 10, 15,000 down. It's not wildly out of control just yet, but it's starting to approach that point. 2,000, we're not overly concerned. 3, you're starting to get there. 4, alarm bells are ringing.
We'll see if Oni Fury gets any pushback from the Gilded Gladiators. Pyromancer's going to have to wait a little bit of time. Even these small objectives picked up by the Gilded Gladiators, immediately dropped by Sotos and Rottwen. So the Greater Scorpion, a small prize, given over to the Highland Ravens. Now, Hunter scaling over on left has maintained its current pace, as you'd imagine, Myth, because we haven't seen anything happen over there on left. But a different mindset from VaporishCoast. Uninterested in any of the crit items. The luckiest crit of all time from Toddy rings out against Coast, but maybe fighting over the red buff. We'll see where the Gilded Gladiators want to draw the line. Adapting and Silenced have loved these red buff invades so far here in game 1. Giving a little extra farm over to themselves, helped out with the 1 level lead that Adapting has. Red buff dropped. The Gilded Gladiators simply watch it go down. So the line, Myth, not Pyro, it's not Gold Fury, it's not red buff. But you got 35 seconds if you're the Gilded Gladiators to decide if Oni Fury is a worthwhile fight.
It has got to be, right? Your Book of Thoth is stacked up on MastKiII in the jungle. You're very rapidly approaching second relic for Rottwen. You don't want the Highland Ravens taking Oni Fury uncontested, separating your map with enhanced mini waves, and then just walking over the Fire Giant, because they've got a composition that is very capable of it. Maybe the only thing slowing them down is VaporishCoast itemizing more so for PvP against the tanks of the Gilded Gladiators than actually dealing with the PvE crit. Just the king in situations like that. I imagine we see the Gilded Gladiators try and make something happen before this Oni Fury. Maybe a rotation to burn some relics, some aggressive plays in mid. That's a good start.
Ooh, good damage from MastKiII. That gets the beads off of Angry, but also the ult off of MastKiII, and it's right around when the Fury spawns. And so Angry no beads. Feels bad, but MastKiII without that execute, if the Oni Fury is immediately pulled, might feel a bit worse. Now this is actually, we're potentially, for the first time this game, actually going to see some of the importance of this Athena ult. It got Xnnahh out of a fight a little bit ago, but lestimics does not have teleport for a minute and a half, neither does Xnnahh. But if Xnnahh is able to keep lestimics in lane for a little bit longer, could be an easier pull. I wonder if the Ravens know that MastKiII's over on right. They're looking for another blue buff invade.
They pulled fire.
Instead, they're pulling Fire Giant. It's not the blue buff. It's the big buff. It's the Fire Giants, and they've got an AoE Coerce for it. Only Fury to the Highland Ravens, but the burn, the frenzy, the coerce, all of it. It's pulled, and it's taken by the Gilded Gladiators. As a Fear No Evil from adapting on the back end sends a couple of the Gladiators back. Silence, though, has taken one of those buffs away. Angry with the second. And another one has died off. In the meantime, the Highland Ravens, they lose Fire Giant, but they handedly win this fight. And they'll take the advantage in the 18-minute mark.
Fortunately, Todd, he gets to keep that buff so long as he doesn't step too far forward here. I love the call from the Gilded Gladiators. I love where their head's at. The damage output, not quite there just yet. Maybe if a couple more members were close enough to the Fire Giant, you're able to get at least 2 or 3 out of there. But the idea of, we know they're on the Oni Fury. We saw them cross through mid. Kana went back to base. We know his teleport's down, so he's almost certainly ulted over here. Let's just go ahead and pull the Fire Giant and see what we can do. Phenomenal attempt from the Gilded Gladiators. Admirable.
Yep.
But the Highland Ravens, with their veteranship and veteran leadership, gotta think it's Adapting who sniffs that one out. He was the first one to make the rotation. We're able to counter him out and take the team fight immediately afterward. What was it, a 4-man Fear No Evil?
Yep.
Kana rotates through. Angry does a lot of damage as well. MastKiII actually had the opportunity to disengage, but decides to go back into that fight. Tries to shut down Adapting, but wide with the Dragon Call. Adapting, essentially dancing at 10% HP for the entirety of the last 30 seconds of that engagement. Just baiting the Gilded Gladiators forward. Highland Ravens now, without Fire Giant on map to take, though, will struggle to push their lead. It's only at about 6, maybe 7,000 at this point. Not exactly the most confident in just walking into these structures. Maybe that tier 1 on left, sure, but tier 2 is definitely defendable by the Gilded Gladiators. So perhaps a bit of value in just taking that Fire Giant away from the Ravens, even if it did cost you your lives.
Unless the Highland Ravens can force a fight somewhere on the map. But the Gilded Gladiators, Myth, they have played the disengage game wonderfully all throughout the game here in game number 1. Just a moment ago, you saw the mentality of MastKiII, I think. Angry walks around the corner and it's immediate teleport away on the Kuang. All right, predict for me, if you will, Myth. Unless we haven't had fights step on the toes of our questions or our conversations yet this game. They've been few and far between. We've started some mistimed bits in the past. Kuang, give me predictions. You think SPL come Worlds time, come group stage time early in January, gets a little buffy buff here recently. Do you think this is an SCC exclusive? Or are you thinking strong enough that we might see it on the world stage?
We might see Kuang maybe once. He is not going to be a consistent at Worlds. It's a pocket pick. Maybe you built a wild composition around it. I don't think the God is strong enough to stand up on his own just yet.
Okay.
You need to build something around
We're
him.
learning to. We're a baby. We're growing up. We're learning to walk. We need a little assistance from the squad to stand up.
Yeah, we're on Bambi vibes for sure.
Well, I hope not. That's worrying for Bambi, or worrying for Kuang. That means the rest of the team has fallen in the team fight, and then Kuang hits its strength later on.
Which is fine, you know. If it's just one guy that's going to win you the fight, it's still a one fight.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Highland Ravens have only had to win one big fight so far this game, and have been able to expand their lead. It's an ult forced. Kana maybe sensing that Angry's in a bit of danger. It's just poke damage from Totti, who did maintain that Fire Giant buff, by the way.
And that's massive. He's going to have it for 13 more seconds. Wonder what he gets up to.
Probably going to farm up a bit more, maybe buy some more crit. Often, also, I do want to lean into that a bit here, Myth. So it's double ADC composition for the Gilded Gladiators. Both have gone for the same exact build. They both are building into crit. Do you usually prefer to see diversified builds between the two ADCs and a double ADC comp, or in a meta like this, you think it's okay?
I think it is okay if they had done the other build. If it's yellow numbers build, both ADCs can go for it, and there's nothing you can build that's like,
right,
oh, that counters kin size, or now your Odysseus bow does a little bit less. Because they've both gone towards crit, I mean, spectral armor exists.
Yeah, that's true.
Grab that, you're going to find value against both hunters, whereas previously it would have been just one if they had split their builds, or if they had both gone for like the yellow numbers.
Sure. Well, something that can maybe limit how effective both of these ADCs are. As MastKiII jumped on, and the folly of the Kuang continues. 0-2 start for Kuang here in game number 1. Angry. My goodness. Chunk damage. Fear no evil forces the beads, and beads just enough. That'll keep adapting at bay, but mid lane Phoenix Siege potentially. But no, the Highland Ravens realize Fire Giant has respawned, and back to the FG they go. I misspoke a little bit, so it is a bit different. I thought it was the exact same build. It's Wind Demon.
They're both crit.
Third item for Totti. There's an Executioner for Sotos in the middle there.
Which will help out Totti.
But then it's going to be a Wind Demon eventually anyway. So we likely get to crit either way, but there is an Executioner splitting the two. Kana did go Spectral, and that's a nice look. So Gilded Gladiators head on over to the Gold Fury. The Highland Ravens in the meantime taking the Fire Giant for themselves.
Good trade.
For the Ravens.
Of course.
We'll get Fire Giant on all 5. And they've got 2 tier 2 towers left to work down. You're hoping if you're the Gladiators, Myth, this late game composition has reached the late game. I'm just not sure we've quite gotten there.
Yeah, late game goalposts push back a bit considering gold deficit and map state. Fire Giant on all 5 because the Highland Ravens probably couldn't care less that you're a double hunter composition with Kuang 24 minutes in because their 24 minutes just a bit more valuable. Adapting makes the rotation, actually shows himself on map there. So the Gilded Gladiators realize that perhaps there's an opportunity to catch out individual members here. MastKiII off the mark, doesn't find the damage. Kana, how tanky are you? Just enough. Makes his way out of there with the defender of Olympus and heads on back to base. The Highland Ravens, they do not fumble their Fire Giant Siege. All 5 maintained, and a clear path on where they're going to move. Let's go through that left lane, grab that tier 2, and approach these Phoenixes. Gilded Gladiators, given the opportunity, should be able to drop this tier 1. Doubt we see them continue to the tier 2 tower. Instead, likely will back to base. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. They're thinking about it too, which means I'm allowed to think about it. Back started, stopped, and started once more. They've got the opportunity to play defense with a Trebuchet on left side. I'd like to see them hold on to it until the Phoenix is actually threatened. Otherwise, pray that your ADCs are landing wild crits on the non-spectral armor holders. So anyone that is adapting Angry or Vaporish, Kana and Silence both pretty decent at diving that back line.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if Angry dives one of Sotos or Totti, some of those crits make a difference, but have to imagine Coast is going to play safe enough. Adapting could be a threat, and sure is. This MastKiII has been soloed, and now the avenue clear for adapting. You can either shove down right, unfortunately you got no minions, or you can rejoin the rest of your team. You don't have Fear No Evil. You do have a numbers advantage and a 2-man taunt, and a 2-man Fields of Love as Coast will dash backwards. Lestimics walks forward. He's thrown out the Chaac ultimate already. Waves have been dealt with, so is the Trebuchet, and over in mid, adapting has dropped the Phoenix. The Gladiators double back, realizing this is a losing fight.
Yeah, can't defend the Phoenix, might be able to defend the Titan though. Where will the Highland Ravens set their sights? It still has 20 seconds left on MastKiI's respawn. But why push that advantage and when you could instead go back to base and spend the gold not only from 2 Phoenixes, David, but also a tier 2 tower. That was so much gold in their pockets, it was weighing them down. They had less movement speed. Let's convert those into items. The Highland Ravens are of like mind, every single one of them. Go for that play.
That's good game balance.
That's right.
The team that's so far ahead.
You got to empty those pockets.
Movement speed, reverse scales with how much gold that you have to go back and spend.
I'm about it.
That feels great. I'm so far ahead that I'm super slow. That's a great mechanic. Highland Ravens luckily will avoid that, whether existent or not.
Grab the Pyro. There's still Phoenix up. You got to get there. You only have 40 seconds left in this Fire Giant power play, though, so it could be that you attempt to find a pick, and barring that, drop the bird, fall back for Fire Giant.
But with a lead like this, Myth, I mean, Fire Giant's icing on the cake, right? I'm thinking Highland Ravens probably strong enough, almost entirely 6-slotted against almost entirely 5-slotted. Full tier 3 items ahead for basically everyone. That FG or not, this Phoenix Siege should be confident for the Highland Ravens. Now, MastKiII is behind the Ravens, but he might find a Gilded Gladiators team that's down a support. But no, Rottwen able to leap away. Fire Giant buff, just 5 seconds remaining. Again, you're looking at the gold lead, though. Is this where the Highland Ravens feel the most comfortable? Lestimics goes in, he's taunted, uses the beads, has ult, but doesn't let it fly. You got those honeycombs from VaporishCoast healing up the team.
It's a tense game of chicken these two teams are playing. Who's going to ult first? It won't be me, says all 10 members of the map right now. Previously, it didn't really require too many ultimates for the Highland Ravens to break the base because the Gilded Gladiators stay strong to their pacifist run and allow their birds to fall down, except for MastKiII, who had lost the battle previously up
Angry
against
backs
Adapting.
away.
This time, it was a 2v1 that he survives with a smart escape. Right side, Phoenix maintained. Fire Giant 20 seconds away. Highland Ravens, you gotta think they're just gonna take it.
Yeah, I don't think you got to think, Biff. I think it's the obvious route. The Gladiators got the earlier Fire Giant,
Barely.
but did lose 4 members of their team. You just want to avoid getting blanked at this point. This is a likely Ravens win.
Gotta see one go in.
Need to see a kill drop, especially with this late game scaling comp that we keep talking about. We're 28 minutes in, and 4 members of your team are on the bottom half of the damage charts, and Athena is out damaging everyone except lestimics. Fire Giant quietly to the Highland Ravens.
She's got Pythag, so it's a little bit of power.
Yeah.
You know, Fire Giant power, Hero's Axe. That makes sense to me.
Does it make sense? Or
They
are you making
added-
excuses?
They added damage to Confound, man. So even when she's initiating, she's dealing damage.
Well, I'm not saying Athena shouldn't deal damage.
It's like a lot of damage.
We got double ADC and an Kuang that are 29 minutes in, 5 items each, and Pythag's Athena is doing more.
You know, Athena's got 6 items.
Now this game state has it. This game script has not been favorable for the Gilded Gladiators, so you have to give a bit of a bailout to the carries. Phoenix defense is an area where they can flex their muscles a bit. Left and mid Phoenixes are going to be respawning shortly, but the fire minions should make quick work of the respawned Phoenix, unless somebody from the Gilded Gladiators hovers over there. A little bit of damage from SCC. A little bit of damage from Totti, climbs him up the damage charts. Ravens haven't been able to crack this right side of the base just yet. Have gotten some good damage into the Phoenix though, so they're like much easier. Jump in, jump out from Adapting. And the wave again getting cleared.
Dave, they're not trying to break the base. They're trying to do it on a challenge run. Keep your eyes on the diamonds on the right side of your screen.
I'm
Those
watching 'em.
indicate ultimate usage.
Okay.
We haven't used them. Initiate the fight with Adapting's ultimate, and all of a sudden 4 sets of beads are gone. Have iSilenced do the same thing, and now Adapting's ultimate's going to kill people, right?
Right.
Instead, the Highland Ravens, they're saying we only need 3 buttons and a left click.
There have been plenty of taunts from Xngnnah. Just no jump
No follow-up.
on much of those. Phoenix now getting walked out. The wave finally uncleared. Another taunt from Xngnnah.
My man's hitting too many. If I'm Xngnnah, I'm about to rage out.
As the Ravens do pick up the left side Phoenix once again, as the fire minions will deal the last bit of damage there, but the mid lane Phoenix is respawned. That'll send Adapting over towards mid. And Angry as well, so that'll be a 2v1 in mid, which means 4v3 for the Gilded Gladiators over on right. And that split effective enough to once again drop the mid lane Phoenix. Now, odd numbers as Silences walk forward. There's your Fear No Evil! It's on to 3, and it's forced both actives off of Totti. But Rottwen wants to go back in. A transformation from the Fafnir leads the charge for the Gilded Gladiators, and a stun onto Xngnnah. Maybe the Highland Ravens have done enough and withstood the pressure.
Gilded Gladiators may have taken a couple ultimates away from the Ravens, but maintain every single one of theirs, barring Rottwen's. MastKiII wishing Rottwen was nearby. 1 versus 3.
Now
Not
we go.
exactly opportune.
Now we go. There's fire minion waves. There's
Well, the
minion
minions
waves
will do it
in
on
mid.
its
The
own.
Titans half HP. The Highland Ravens bought their time, but it looks like time has run out for the Gilded Gladiators in game 1. At the 31 and some change minute mark, the Highland Ravens crushed the Gilded Gladiators in game 1. Xngnnah may fall, and he does for the only kill of the game for the Gilded Gladiators, but there's simply too much from the Highland Ravens, and that'll be game 1 to the favorites.
That was the longest stomp I have ever seen. The Highland Ravens made them watch. You know, like, they just, all right, we're gonna beat you, and it's gonna take a while, and you're gonna sit there, and it's gonna happen. And I'm not gonna use my ultimates unless I'm peeling. Eventually, it lines up for a dub.
And Adapting
nearly
gets like
goose
a
egg
4-man Fear No Evil.
for disengage, because he's peeling
Right.
out because his Xing walked up and didn't press his ultimate.
Kana got a lot of taunts there, and the Highland Ravens, they're able to take the game here in game number 1. Gilded Gladiators, the late game comp looks good. You got to get there. Unfortunately for them, the Highland Ravens run things here in game number 1. Game number 2, Ravens versus Gladiators, coming up next.
No tienes vergüenza, mami. Sal, sal. Ajá, no tienes vergüenza, mami.
I got the fattest ass in Queens, bitch.
Hey, yo.
And we really getting money. V,
Let's go. Hey, yo, V.
what's up? Robando corazón y todo el dinero. Me gustan los bandoleros. Blowing the bank, tíralo pa' cielo. Lo quiero entero. Dinero, papi, te quiero. ¿Qué es tu problema? Yo tengo sueño. He looking at me like he trying to fuck. Locked in my sights and I'm shooting my shot. Bendito mi amor, tell me what's up. We robbing the bank or we fucking or what? Venga acá, suerte papi, si me gusta so fucked up. 7 copas, una juca, tequila. Sal, perrea. Dinero, papi, te quiero. ¿Qué es tu problema? Yo tengo sueño.
I make this motherfucker bang. Coolie suelta, media loca, baila choca. I make this motherfucker bang. Rebel y grites, gangale. Bandidos en la noche, yo que manda aquí.
Dinero, papi, te quiero. ¿Qué es tu problema? Yo tengo sueño.
I make this motherfucker
Dinero, papi, te quiero. ¿Qué es tu problema? Yo tengo sueño.
I make this motherfucker bang. Yeah. Like words from the mouth of a gun, I fell for your tongue. No podía creer el tiro que tomé, ni tus labios que probé. Yeah, you're running, gastando el tiempo, y baby lo siento, but I think you just need to open up. No more lying about who you love. Baby, no me mientes, baby, no me mientas, sí, maná. Si me quieres, ahora me debes. Baby, dime la verdad. Y baby, no me mientes. Baby, no me mientas, sí, maná. Si me quieres, ahora no mientes. Baby, dime la verdad. Siempre me tiraste los mensajes, texteándome las fotos en bikini. Tú no me cobraste, tú no me cobraste. Sé que trabajas muy duro pagando biles con...
Well, in our 4th set of the day, game number 1 of that one goes over to the EU SCC number 2 representatives with the Highland Ravens. Again, all these players playing for their opportunity to go to the Smite World Championship qualifier rounds. That's the week before the Smite World Championship. And there's going to be a lot of things to do at the Smite World Championships. You can hang out with your friends. You can meet a bunch of other fans. You can hang out with the casters, the players, all that kind of stuff. Or if you're good at cosplay, which I'm certainly not, so somebody way better out there than me should definitely enter the cosplay contest that is taking place. That's our 9th annual SWC cosplay contest. $9,000 on the line for those who are out there competing. There's all different categories. They're judged on a vast array of factors that go through there. So if you're remotely good at cosplaying, go ahead and sign up. We'll have a live and an online version of those ones. Check out all the details at smitegame.com/SWC for all the details and information on how you can sign up for the prestigious event out there. And let me tell you, there have been some amazing cosplays over the course of the years. I think to this day, still some of my favorites are the Rom and the Ares ones that I've seen over the years. Nemesis has also had a great one. So if you got a good cosplay, just go ahead and sign up. But signing up now for game number 2, the Highland Ravens with a win in game number 1, Charlie. And this is kind of a hard one of those to analyze, because this is just the Highland Ravens beating the Gladiators in every aspect, aside from getting kills. I think there was one Fire Giant fight that went south for the Gladiators. Only one person ends up walking out with it at that point through. But they're still losing the game on all fronts. Highland Ravens don't need the kills. All they need is the pressure to win out.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. I mean, it was a lot of CC setup, and then there was this big set in the background that was able to just follow up with all that damage. I think Angry didn't get credit for a lot of those kills, but was certainly applying a ton of poke damage. There's a lot of these Fear No Evils from adapting I think were completely on point, getting big value out of pretty much every single one of those, as well as setup from Cxnnahh. I mean, the taunts in from this Athena were so much that there was just never any beads available. I know at the beginning of this game, you said that there would probably be a lot of Aegis burning, and maybe needed some Aegis, because there's a lot of shells this time around that the Gilded Gladiators were just not able to actually live through towards the end of these fights.
Yeah, I mean, it was nearly 30,000 player damage by the end of the game for Angry, maybe wishing, like I said, on the side of the Gladiators to pick up a couple of Aegises for those carries, because they were just getting melted by the damage that Adapting and Angry were able to put out. The CC, insane. I mean, typically, first off, I see an Athena in any of my games, I'm buying beads no matter what, unless I'm the support, and then I probably have to sit there and debate, is it worth it if I buy beads for my own sanity more than anything? But you've got an Athena, a Xing, a Hun Batz, and a Cupid. There is so much pressure on beads that I think even if you were allowed to somehow buy 2 and a Magi's, it just doesn't feel like it would be enough to defend against this.
I'm just thinking about how lame a game would be if you had 3 pairs of beads in your back pocket. Like you could just keep buying them. Like, okay, I got one of his beads. I'm pretty sure he's got 2 more, but not the first one's got 100 seconds left on the cooldown. Either way, yeah, it didn't seem like the Gladiators were able to have enough CC immunity there to live through those fights. So possibly something to consider in the picks and bans, right? I don't think you're banning out Hun Batz just because Adapting can do that level of dive on a bunch of different characters, but Cxnnahh on the Athena could be something to try and target out here, or the Xing. I think there's a few different picks, if you are trying to keep your CC immunity alive, that they could look at. And especially the first pick of the Kuang. I know MastKiII loves this god and was also able to take it away from Adapting. It's a god that he likes as well, but was not really able to get going there. The Kuang wasn't able to make it to late game where he actually thrives.
Yeah, and I think that the topic conversation that always comes up on a first pick like that is, okay, you put all of your, not necessarily everything, but you put a lot of weight and a lot of favoritism towards this pick because you think that this is what your team needs, or this is what you think that you might need out there. And when it doesn't quite perform up to scruff, you maybe question the validity of top picking them. And we'll see if the Kuang even makes it through in game number 2 as we jump into the picks and bans between the Gilded Gladiators and the Highland Ravens. Gladiators once again taking that first pick position. Imagine, I was actually going to say, we probably won't see that set, and that performance that Angry had on it, Gladiators seem to feel the exact same, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that one gone. And you know what? I wanted to analyze that game before I asked you this, but did you ever get to meet the Bacchus cosplay guy that would come with his son every year? He would be a different Bacchus skin with his son. Love that guy. So once again, cosplay contest. You guys should sign up.
Yes, every year that he came, it was a different Bacchus skin. He never came in the same one. It was always something different. I remember when they introduced like the one where he has like the cup, the drink hat, and everything like that.
The
Hoot and Holler, and
course.
that's the one of it. That was probably one of my favorite ones. Just a genuinely great guy to meet out there. Again, sign up for the cosplay contest, MyTeam.com/SWC. But do that after, or maybe at the same time that you're watching this game, because picks and bans, or at least the bans, have already now completed out their set Athena Daji for the Gladiators. So taking away 2 of the big problems on the side of the Highland Ravens are the Gladiators. And the opposite end, still focusing out lestimics a little bit, and then the Emoja as well. Leaves an Ishtar first pick for the Gilded Gladiators.
Yeah, I like to see the set as we talked about it in the Athena as well. I think those are 2 picks that the Gladiators did not love dealing with, the damage from the set and the setup, and also that global presence from the Athena, which leaves open that Ishtar, and Coast is going to immediately lock in that Cupid, a pick that he's been having a lot of fun on, and also just setting up so much for the team. So that one makes a lot of sense. Looks like Cern might go overlooked this time around, or maybe more double hunter composition. But the Ravens are going to grab that Xing because they want that CC, and also they want to shut down some of that ADC damage coming from, in this case, the Ishtar.
Yeah, could even be one that maybe dissuades the Gladiators from going towards other primarily heavy auto attackers, whether that be in the jungle with something like a Mercury, or whether that be another hunter potentially over in the mid lane. And this Xing, we kind of saw it picked up with the Athena last game. We talked about some of the potential ambiguity with that pick, whether that one goes to support, Whether it's a solo lane in game number 1, it does go over to support. I think still maybe a little bit up in the air where this one locks in, but there's no question where that one's going, Trelly. Thor locked in for adapting.
Yep, that's going to be some big CC as well as just great damage. Love seeing adapting pilot this Thor, and it's a pick that he goes to from time to time again. It looks like the Kuang is actually going to be taken away from MastKiII by the Ravens. They're not going to let that one slide through. And I have to imagine when you see Ishtar, when you see Hades and Fafnir, another Hunter could definitely be on the horizon here. They've got plenty of magical damage. They've got plenty of setup and coerce damage with that Fafnir. So could be something that the Ravens need to worry about. But it looks like they're still just focusing out MastKiII with that Batz and the Kuang ban. Whereas the Gladiators, they're more so worried about the mages. They're going to take away the Tiamat and the Huang. And just go ahead and the Ravens will grab that Amaterasu.
It kind of just feels so weird banning like those two. Like I know that those are two picks that Angry does really well on. Those are two picks that are just pretty good right now. You know, Tiamat, not really a meta pick. Huang has definitely been more of the meta for the EU mid laners out there. Just feels so strange seeing those two of all picks kind of be the ones taken out, especially maybe with the performance that Merlin has had so far this weekend. Wouldn't be surprised to see Angry go to. That was kind of his default, oh no, they banned X and Y god. But it's not going to be Merlin. Charlie, kind of talk to me about this Agni. We've seen a couple of buffs come his way recently. We've seen maybe some items that change up. How do you feel about Agni right now?
I think any bit of range damage that can get away from Hades and try and keep Awilix at bay is going to be solid. So Agni has that ability to use the Flame Wave, the stun, to say, hey, MastKiII, you're in combat. You can't blink on me. As well as, oh, Hades is coming. I'm going to try and push some damage back and dash away. Those are all good opportunities. So just a safe god that still does that decent damage. I think Vulcan would have been solid as well, but doesn't have as easy of a time trying to keep Awilix under control.
Well, we'll see if that safety in the mid lane can net the Highland Ravens a second win and move on to the second round of play. We'll jump into game number 2 with Dulcet and Mifflin.
Still some safety for the Gilded Gladiators should they lose this game up against the Highland Ravens. But the Highland Ravens, eyes on the prize. And it's a win here in game number 2. Move themselves on, guaranteed to the next stage of this event. As a reminder, 2 teams from each of our group make it out. And then 2 teams from those 4 will make their way to the SWC group stages. So the Highland Ravens, Miff, slowed things down a bit earlier on in game 1. 1 kill for 15 or so minutes. Then it was
21.
It was sort of the correct call to pull FG, but then the missed team fight opportunity from the Gilded Gladiators where that game really took off for the Highland Ravens. They took their time closing things out, but never much in question after that Fire Giant fight against the Gilded Gladiators.
We'll see what type of pace we get here in game 2. I imagine we're going to see a good deal more from MastKiII in particular. Pretty difficult on Kuang to make literally anything happen in the early to mid game, which is why we don't often see Kuang. Awilix, a complete departure from that style, and one that MastKiII has gone towards consistently in the past, even in his opportunities throughout the year to come into the studio and play at LANs, is generally veered towards things like the Awilix, like the Fenrir, because of how strong she is in the early. And he's got some pretty decent targets for that aggression as well. VaporishCoast, if you're smart about it and quick enough, Featherstep can stop that flutter. Adapting will struggle to use the hammer to escape any situation. So long as Featherstep is available, you can stop that in its tracks as well. And you've got some really, really great synergies from the Gilded Gladiators composition. I love what I saw there. Sotos' knockup, that's consistent, it's unmissable. That's Gravity Surge.
You liked what you
every
saw
time.
for the knockup.
That's right.
Did you like what you saw after the knockup where Adapting dodged 6 autos in a row?
Well, I thought it was cool.
Right, the knockup was cool.
Yeah,
It's a good start.
that's right.
And those were all the missed autos for the rest of the game. We're on track immediately after
And
that.
Sotos was just, he's just checking the knockup to see the timing of it.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Coast dashes forward. You don't often see this over in duo. Silenced won't be able to fully chase down Totti.
So that double disarm from Rottwen really stopped that aggression.
Yeah, still maybe a lane where Silence and Coast can remain aggressive. Now, Gilded Gladiators, Myth, they've stuck with this double ADC comp. On the flip side, Angry still playing a mage, but a bit of a different mage here, as Agni is the answer. A very telegraphed blue buff invade. Appears like Kana wants to hang around, farm up the wave. Maybe Adapting can steal this away with a hammer. Unable, but lestimics uses the beads in order to pick up that blue. I suppose this early in the game, maybe not necessary to hold on to those, at least not until adapting is level 5.
Yeah, better pray adapting doesn't hit 5 first, because he'll be back, right? I mean, really an unnecessary usage of beads there. Gotta trust MastKiII in situations like that. I mean, what? Maybe he's worried that like stun into hammer, he needed to auto attack the blue buff to make sure
Wanted to
that it was
confirm the blue.
confirmed.
That reads to me like a beads to 100% confirm the blue.
And he got it.
They
So
did.
I suppose if he's made that value trade in his head, those beads, even if it weren't necessary for him, it was a trade he was willing to make regardless. So
Right.
gets what he wanted in the end.
We'll see if adapting at level 5 with that Anvil of Dawn makes his way towards right, potentially gets a gank going onto lestimics. Though lestimics will have Pillar of Agni, so be able to avoid the stun, return some damage, but still for the next minute and a half or so, a little bit of extra threat looming on the right side of the map. And adapting plus Thor myth is about as storied as it gets when it comes to player god combinations. I've already seen adapting on it this weekend. It's looked good for the Highland Ravens. And so maybe, you know, you talked about how the Kuang slowed down in the early game a little bit. You need to see some more from MastKiII. This should be a pretty contentious early to mid game from these junglers.
I think so. Adapting slightly behind in experience. Once he takes over to level 5, I imagine we'll see a good deal of aggression. And Thor, I think it just really chooses spots. It doesn't necessarily super matter which one of these lanes he's ganking. Has got pretty decent opportunities in every single one of them. Barring mid, Charybdis just a bit too safe to want to dedicate your time there. But Dave, I want to hear your perspective on this.
Are you chair wanting me right now?
Well, no, you got to chair one this one, though.
I do. MastKiII will leap over Angry. Won't get to the pull in, but adapting dunks in. There's the stun and the double tap on the hammer. And Sotos under a lot of threat here. I'm not sure Sotos has mana to get anything else going. Level 5 is hit, and so is First Blood +1. Fantastic for the Ravens in mid.
MastKiII tries to pull out a magic trick, says, I'll Gravity Surge, and it's going to do something for me. Whatever it is, I'm not sure, but it's going to give me the damage I need to shut down Angry. It's not how that ability works, though. And Sotos just dragged out of position by his ally, getting a bit over-aggressive on that tower line. Easy stuff for adapting to dunk in there. The question I was going to ask you was,
Okay.
you know, you're a bit newer to the scene. You haven't been playing Smite as much as I have. What are some of the most like iconic God player combos in your mind? Like, I think of adapting Thor. I think of Gar's Thor. I think of Xing Thor. I'm thinking of a lot of Thors.
It's a lot of Thor.
Xing Hunbots, really.
I think the problem is I have a really small brain, so a lot of
No.
it's recency bias.
It's average.
I think San for Soccer, Mercury really comes to mind. He's
Oh, that's
played
a
a
good
lot
one.
of really good
That's a good
Mercury
one.
recently. Fine OK on either Cullen or King Arthur has been pretty prolific. There's a lot. Name any of the top tier supports in the league and Ymir. Those have gone pretty hand in hand.
Well, you got to give like one guy the Ymir. If you had to give one player Ymir,
Oh God! Like right now,
I might be giving it to either. It's a toss between Genetics
I was
and
gonna
Ronnie.
I was gonna say genetics, but then I was gonna say Wrong You Yamoja.
Oh yeah,
I was
no,
gonna say
you're right.
Wrong You Yamoja.
But you could also say Genetics Yamoja. Now, you know what? I think all the top tier supports can play all the top tier characters.
That's what
What's
I'm
up with that?
That's what I'm
What's
saying.
up with that?
That's what I'm saying. That's why Ymir has been highly contested in our SPL matches.
Uh-oh.
Ymir's been pretty contested this weekend as well. Miff, you were nervous about something. It
Dude,
was
adapting
adapting.
was
It was
up.
adapting. I was gonna finish. Don't. I was adapting going up. Did not end up dunking down onto MastKiII. And enough of the Highland Ravens show up over on right. That purple buff invaded successfully by the Gilded Gladiators. We'll push them back just a bit. Curious, you know, I wonder, Miff, if Angry with the big range on this Agni, and I'll hold this thought as a dazzling offensive in a wall, will catch lestimics, and lestimics with 2 in the Pillar of Agni, but he's got to leave. There's
He's in
simply too
trouble.
much damage. Now being able to be returned from the Ravens. A double silence only goes so far. Use the beads again anyway. Oh, silence was way behind. That was a kill 10 times out of 10, and it's a second for adapting.
Yeah, but I love the idea from Lestimics there. Dashes on wave to get blight on each minion. Says, if I leap away, I die to hammer throw. Or to the knock-up from iSilenced. So it takes maybe the only play he can, which is to try and turn around a kill. Adapting nearly falls to it as well. Damage output from Hades really starting to stack up. Had he had a few more stacks on that Book of Thought, things would have been different.
Rottwen will transform.
Oof.
Nearly Whirlwind of Raged and Steeled, but Silence will be just short on it. So both supports end up sending out their ults. Over in mid, Angry with a bit of poke damage on the end of it. All right, who's going to hit their auto first?
We saw this last game,
We
and
did.
Totti hit the craziest crit. Oh,
Coast got the...
this kid is nasty.
No, Totti doesn't have crit yet in his build.
And that's why Coast is willing to fight.
That's why Coast won that engagement handedly.
Oof.
Rottwen's going to make his way over to right. Nearly reads the hammer. He won't. But I was going to say over in mid. You know, I wonder, you got Angry on the Agni this game, so you
Sure
got a
do.
lot of long-range poke now. I wonder, should the Ravens continue to build up this lead? Should we get into Tower, Fire Giant, Siege territory? That type of ranged poke goes a longer way in softening up some of that defense that was difficult for the Ravens to break down in Game 1.
But Dave, you're making one critical error in your analysis here.
Well, and I'm not an analyst, so it's likely that I am making many errors.
What was the game of chicken around those Phoenixes? We're not using ultimates on Siege.
Right, but if the Ravens were cautious because they felt like the Gladiators were too healthy, maybe some extra poke damage.
But the poke would have to come from the ultimate. This is a chicken and the egg conversation, Dave.
Oh, you're right. You're not arguing that there isn't poke damage. You're saying
there's poke. It
you're
just
saying
has
the
to
poke
come
is
from
the
the ult.
and
That's
they
right.
weren't willing to use the ult.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a knock up and a pull on Akana, and then a dash away. There's also a dazzling offensive. That'll get used. Charge is 2 and 3 away. Should
Got
be
him.
a kill, and there it is from lestimics. Nearly escaping was Kana. And the right side of the map has felt the aggression this game while Coast and Totti trading autos. Everyone else fighting over in the solo lane.
Yeah, Kana not tanky enough to take that aggressive rotation towards mid. Gets caught for his efforts. Highland Ravens able to at least confirm their greater Scorpion before the Gilded Gladiators were able to fold back in towards mid on the map, mitigating a bit of their losses there. But I'd like to see the Gilded Gladiators get even further aggressive. You've got a really strong start. You've got a really strong power spike on MastKiII as well with that Hydra Star. Maybe not impressive graphically, but the stats incredibly good. Maybe a rotation towards Pyromancer, Gold Fury for some of these engagements.
That was fantastically subtle by you there, man. We often see this between a Cupid and an Ishtar. Just Fields of Love traded out for the Ishtar ult. Totti actually very close to death there. Wonder if Coast could have beads, dashed forward, won that 1v1.
Why risk it? Rottwen's been camping this lane.
Yeah, now, Totti also had Scepter, so that could have tilted the fight right back. Making another critical error in my analysis. I'm going to stick to only what's happening on screen, and I'm going to leave you to any of the intangibles for the rest of this game. I don't want
You don't have to do all that.
I don't want any more critical errors.
What if I start talking about on the screen?
Starting right now, all I'm saying is what's happening on screen. God, pathetic.
Hydra
The
Star.
Hydra Star, just terrible.
You say that now, but when you're at your next fondue fountain, you're gonna wish Hydra Star was there for you.
No, I want Hydra's lament when I'm eating fondue. I want 6 marshmallows
You're
and a
gonna hurt
brownie
yourself.
on that spear. Dunk it in the chocolate. I want no room.
It was a cheese fountain. You're gross.
Point stands. I want marshmallows. And
Oh God.
the Highland Ravens want Pyromancer. That's what's happening on screen right now. And they've maintained pace right around this 1.5 to 2,000 gold lead.
It's gone right where they want them.
The Ravens?
Yeah, no more lead, no less. This is where the Highland Ravens
They wanna
like to be. 2K.
No, but that does raise the importance of this next Gold Fury, because then either you're stabilized with gold being equal if the Gladiators get it for likely the next 15 minutes, or the Ravens get that little bit of extra gold and they're able to springboard the lead. Smart from Coast. Not stepping forward. lestimics caught out by 3. So much agony happening, and actually plays it about as perfectly as you can. Simply not enough damage. And the Gilded Gladiators pull the Gold Fury. Can the range from Angry steal it away? No, it can't, and the Gilded Gladiators pull Gold Fury and have the gold lead.
Yeah, MastKiII spends 30 seconds staring at VaporishCoast, as does Totti. And the Highland Ravens say, well, If he's on that side of the map, we need to make something happen here. lestimics a bit too tanky already, just by nature of Pillars of Agni mitigated damage. Was able to survive that entire engagement from the Highland Ravens, beads used, but if you dedicate that much time to shutting down the solo laner, makes it pretty easy for the Gilded Gladiators to just move that aggression that was aimed at Vaporish into the Gold Fury itself. Angry maybe could have rotated a bit sooner, maybe could have dedicated that dash, close gap, but very risky. So instead, it just falls down, and the Gilded Gladiators take the Gold Fury. Hasn't quite gotten back to parity just yet, but the journey of 1,000 steps begins with just one.
999 to go for the Gilded Gladiators. Almost exactly how much gold they're down. So it's quite poignant here in this moment. Again, if you're talking about scaling, though, for the Gilded Gladiators, the pace not terrible. And, at least through the first 2 items, both of the Hunters have gone for different styles of builds. Crit for Totti. It'll stay that way. Definite win Demon after the Shadow Steel Shuriken. And Sotos didn't go Shadow Steel first. Remember, it was the Executioner between both of the Shuriken items. This time straight into the kin size. I don't know. I mean, Spectral felt strong for Silenced and Xngnnah in game 1 with the heavy crit build from both of the Hunters.
He was getting crit for 80 in game 1.
Beefy.
Silenced, yeah.
And so, what? 3,000 health, something like that. I mean, you're looking at, do the math.
Yeah, 2.5 auto attacks per second. Let's say that you're averaging 70 damage per auto. Yeah, I mean, that's like a 3.4 repeating for sure.
That is a lot of seconds.
Yeah.
Required to melt down one of those tanks. They won't have the same luxury this time around. They'll have to work out exactly what defensive itemization they want to go up against a kin size with on one side and crit over on the other. The Highland Ravens would have loved to get that kill onto lestimics and at least not even things out, but get something for their troubles. As Totti lets an ultimate go towards Coast. Coast still has Fields of Love.
No dash.
And beads. And Aegis. Fields of Love down. Gone is the Aegis. And gone should be Coast. Gets the heart bomb on MastKiII, but Coast ends up dropping nonetheless. The lestimics also dies over on right, so 2 versus 1 on either side of the map. Only difference is Ravens get the tower.
No neutral objectives to go to, so that is the only possible difference as well, Highland Ravens. In taking that tower, could create a situation where lestimics freezes wave at tier 2. Would make it a bit more difficult for Xngnnah to farm up, and you don't want that to be the case if you're a Highland Ravens fans, considering Xngnnah hasn't exactly automized too much towards defense. Berserker Shield, a Bruiser item, haven't finished up with Usari just yet. Golden Blade, no defense there. Would mean rotations from MastKiII could find a good deal of value. De-incentivized is MastKiII to rotate towards solo, by nature of lestimics not only shying away from the standard full damage Hades build that we've become accustomed to seeing, but also just straight up being 2.5 levels behind. Means that he'll likely, MastKiII that is, try and look elsewhere on the map to play aggressively. Mid could be a good spot.
Silence gets knocked up, but no gravity surge back.
I can't believe that.
From MastKiII. I was thinking that would have been a surefire kill, but
He forced the beads at least.
yeah, get the beads. I mean, Xing Chen, relatively safe. But again, if you're getting beads for just ult, you're feeling A-okay. VaporishCoast under some threat for the next minute and a half. Both beads and Aegis missing from the Cupid. Maybe an opportunity here for Rottwen, who's rotating in behind. It's going to require a hammer to connect, and no, VaporishCoast will just back away. So probably smart enough of a player is Coast to play a bit further back with none of those relics for the next minute.
1 entire minute, a full rotation of the second hand around the clock is how long VaporishCoast has got until those beads are back up, which is a significant amount of time. I don't know if you've ever dedicated just a minute to mindfulness. It hurts.
A minute
it's difficult.
is an eternity.
It really is.
A minute is forever. And I'm glad we've established that. As Pyromancer gets pulled by the Highland Ravens. Should be confirmed that it is indeed. So a neutral objective back to the Ravens. So after things stabilized and got equal, Myth, actually the Ravens have been really good around this neutral farm and just rebuilding that gold lead despite a Gold Fury loss. So again, in 8 or so seconds, you're turning your eyes towards the Oni Fury. And the Ravens are an adaptable enough team. Yeah, likely don't make the same mistake twice. They'll send all 5 to the left side of the map. Now, lestimics does not have teleport. So the Hades is simply going to have to walk all the way over if he wants to fight.
Rottwen takes some poke to start off the engagement. Highland Ravens hold on to the objective, drop low, reset. Looking for a bit of poke here, but it's been returned to Cxnnahh first.
This could be the game-changing fight. Again, we talked about poke damage. It's where Angry can send some towards the Gilded Gladiators, but so the Ravens fine to just drop the objective, head back towards red buff. Silenced potentially didn't get the memo. Jumps away, and some long-range snipes from Totti hit their target. Both teams playing cautiously around the Fury.
Good stun and good poke. Adapting does not dedicate the hammer there. Had you gone for the double tap, Sotos would not have been allowed to stick around in this engagement. Instead, the Highland Ravens keeping it slow. Back camp invade from Adapting. This is massive. MastKiII now will have one less back camp. Make it 2 on the map. Adapting, the madman approaches the speed buff. Doesn't realize it's down. Does now. Will rotate back to the Oni Fury, with which the Gilded Gladiators have now pulled.
And potentially unseen, Myth, when the Anvil of Dawn could reach its targets from behind. Instead, it's a 1v1 Adapting against MastKiII. Oh
We hate
no.
that.
Adapting has got to use the Aegis and the Pillars of Agni. Deal the killing blow to the Highland Ravens jungler. Stole away some back camps, threw away his life.
Gilded Gladiators now 5 strong with a double hunter composition uniquely suited for objective play, and an advantage for the next 30 seconds with Adapting into Grayscale could very well look towards the Oni Fury. That spawns up enhanced minion waves in every single one of these lanes. Count of 3 across the map, spreading the attention of Highland Ravens, which would further create opportunities for the Gilded Gladiators to leverage this objective composition.
Yes,
Oni
indeed.
Fury pulled out.
And the Gilded Gladiators want it. They want to pull the focus of the Highland Ravens every which way, but can they do it? Will they secure it? Yes, they will. And the Oni Fury to the Gilded Gladiators. And it's MastKiII in the backline. The Aegis used by Angry. And the Heart Bomb pops on Rottwen. And how about the turnaround CC? My goodness. Cxnnahh and Silence getting it done on the front line of the fight. Gladiators get Fury, but the Highland Ravens get 4.
Cxnnahh has not itemized to stand in front of people and just take autos and mitigate damage. Instead, he wants to do it himself. This time it's Adapting, who confirms the deicide for the Highland Ravens. That is 5 members dead for at least another 10 seconds. Rottwen, fortunate enough to be the lowest level on his team, will respawn first, and maybe in time to hear the death throes of the Fire Giant.
All right, it's an unmaintainable pace.
I'll do it until it ends.
I can't go any further. I told you a minute was a long time.
As
I'm not going beyond that. Fire Giant's gonna get burnt by the Ravens here. Myth, it's the same thing that happened in game 1 though, except the Oni Fury instead of the Fire Giant. Okay, there we go. Remember, it was the Gladiators getting FG and then they lose 4 of their team members. This time the Gladiators sell out for the Oni Fury and then get decided after the fact.
But I like the idea, again, from the Gilded Gladiators. It's hard to say, right? It's execution on field that I think separates them this time
Would
around.
you have rather seen immediate disengage and get out?
I think they tried. Like, the majority of them tried. MastKiII sticks around a bit too long. Disengage. Had it been the target for all of them, maybe you lose 2 members. But I don't think there's a situation where the Gilded Gladiators maintain all of their lives in a post-Gold Fury world. But as glib as we were being, Adapting did legitimately straight up leave the engagement, steps through mid-wave and onto a ward, I believe, that was up at the time. So the Gilded Gladiators, informed in their decision that it would be a 5 versus 4 around the Gold Fury, at least for a brief moment, were able to force the engagement onto Adapting, catch him out, and all of a sudden, it's a 5 versus 4. I could imagine getting swept up in that pace.
As we were, Myth, as we were. The Highland Ravens,
contagious.
They've now got all to play for, and all the gold in the world to do it with, and all but a couple of towers still to knock down on the map, both over in mid, and now just the tier 2 on right. So as far as setup Fire Giants go, usually the first in the game opens up the Phoenixes, the second closes things off. You are going to get crazy gold differential if you're the Highland Ravens from a push like this. And the Gilded Gladiators, Myth, they have selected not to step out. These towers, they're an afterthought. we're going to have to see if our Phoenix defense can hold up, which it did for a little while in game 1.
Adapting, wants MastKiII, a little bit too late on that ultimate.
People are hyped up about this dude's Thor.
Yo, when I tell you that adapting Xing and TottiGRs literally invented the Thor combo, before those guys, we were dunking into auto attacks, okay?
Was my sarcasm not obvious?
No, step to the king, and I'm going to defend him. If there is any adapting fans, I am one of them. If there is only one, it is me, and if there are none, I am no longer on this earth, okay? Don't come at him.
I love adapting.
As you should.
That had nothing to do with him.
Peasants.
The back was just too fast. It's adapting. If he had dunked down, he likely gets the solo kill.
That's
I trust
right,
him
he does.
wholeheartedly in a moment like that. My goodness, I can't even. All right, I'm going back to only what's on the screen and nothing else, Smith. You've chosen this destiny for
Well,
yourself.
that was on the screen. I don't want you talking about that either anymore.
Right, but I started a bit.
Oh, okay.
That was off the screen. So 5 members of the Highland. Oh, yeah, baby, hydras! You could fit so many marshmallows and brownies on that bad boy.
Are you actually, like, putting brownies on a fork? Is that a thing?
Yes, you've ever been to fondue? The brownies go on the fondue fork under the chocolate
I have
fountain.
legitimately never had fondue.
Really?
I haven't.
I
Is
guess
chocolate
it is-
fountain considered fondue? I thought
Yes.
fondue was just cheese.
No, it's cheese fondue. There's broth where that boils, and you put meat in it, and then there's the
That's
final
hot
course.
pot. What you're talking about is hot pot.
No, but that stuff exists already in the hot pot at like meat fondue. Sotos might get solo bursted here. He won't.
I'm Googling this later.
You get like raw meat on a plate, you skewer it, and you put it in broth, and you eat it. It's very,
That's
very
hot
good.
pot.
Oh, Rottwen. So you're seeing the difference here, Miff. I'm telling you, angry with the range is making the difference on the siege. He's bursting down the opponents before they can step forward, but does not mean cracked
Goodness.
Phoenix, not just yet. The Gladiators avoid losing their mid lane bird for now.
Highland Ravens, though, ever the team, the opportunistic team, see this as an opportunity to take the gold fury. They're burning very fast, nowhere to be seen on the Gilded Gladiators, and can you blame them? The Phoenix Siege was looking pretty good, so you got to think the fight in neutral territory would look pretty good for the Highland Ravens
What
as
did
well.
Rottwen sell?
Whew. I mean, that's a loaded question.
Must have sold to
The game?
upgrade the starter.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're talking about like actual items. I thought you were speaking to me like
No,
Urban
there's an
Dictionary.
obvious gap in the itemization there. Must have sold to get Emperor's Armor, but I thought he had Emperor's Armor for a little while. I'm unsure. Could have been starter. I trust Doug with every fiber of my being.
Doug, hover what he sold, bought with the sold gold.
Oh no, he's on the.
No.
He shook his head no. I think it might have been starter upgrade. At any rate, now an item down. Might have just been a tier 1 or tier 2. I think when this game started going sideways, Rottwen went right into the Emperor's Armor, realizing
He knew where he was going to be playing
that
the rest
game
of
was
this
going to be
match.
underneath the Phoenixes for a little while. This would be aggressive from the Gilded Gladiators. They are down a cool 10K. Maybe your only opportunity is a steal. Maybe that's just it, but Angry dropping bombs from over the wall, connecting with Sotos, half HP on just a couple of the charges of the ultimate. A
We're
Fire
resetting.
Giant is reset, not confirmed. MastKiII in behind a couple members of the Highland Ravens. The front line for both teams down to half HP.
Gob stopped. That was a Fire Giant reset there.
Everlasting?
I mean, they had the wall set up. It was
Oh.
just Rottwen in range. That god doesn't steal.
Now we're feeling good. We've gotten Rottwen out of the fight.
Feel good enough to reset that fire.
Well, resetting one more time. Kana getting poked out by MastKiII. MastKiII's been hovering right over here this whole time. Now reveals himself. And Kana low enough, but with teleport. We'll go back to base. Heal up just a bit. Likely teleport back in. He sure does. And it's lestimics who's got to dash away.
Run it back. Fire Giant pulled
Oh,
once
God.
more. This time, Sotos off the map. Totti,
Goodness, what was that?
you got to get out of there, bud.
Where's adapting? This is what we're talking about with the Thor. Dunks in, finds Totti, and forces the actives. It's only a matter of time, and adapting deals the killing blow. There's just 3 members of the Gilded Gladiators remain on the map. Call it 2, and it should
2.
be back and Fire Giant pull for the Ravens.
Highland Ravens, incredibly powerful
We
here.
fell off a
Plenty of
cliff there.
sustain. Should be able to pull the Fire Giant. Rottwen has shown that just by showing up, he can get him off the fire. So you got to think MastKiII capable of the same. won't be attempting it this time, and can you blame him? I wouldn't walk into that one either. The Highland Ravens once more put Fire Giant on all 5 members. This time, no tower standing between them and the exposed birds of the Gilded Gladiators. 30 seconds left unless lestimics respawn. iSilenced. HP 5 from the passive and from Fire Giant. He'll heal up pretty quick.
He should. Look, life is made easier sieging up Phoenixes when 2 of the opposing team members are dead. And so right side Phoenix immediately dropped by the Ravens. And now we'll get to see if my theory's correct. If we're using no ultimates around the Phoenixes, or if Angry on the Agni will drop some damage on the Gilded Gladiators and make life a bit easier on the siege.
You want some spoilers?
Yeah.
He's going to hit him with Rain Fire, bro. And you know what? I'll do you one better.
You just abandoned that bit so
It's going to
fast.
Rain Fire, straight up Noxious Fumes combo. He might even Rain Fire twice.
Maybe grab a stun?
That's that's Noxious Fumes, bro.
Right, but all right.
That's right.
You can't drag me into a bit and then bail on me the moment I yes-and you. That's not how any of that works.
But I did.
Right, but I'm saying you shouldn't.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying you shouldn't.
Wait, is this like my boss talking to me, or is this my buddy Dave?
Probably Buddy Dave.
Okay,
Your
cool.
boss would be telling you not to engage in a bit to begin
No
with.
bits at all, actually.
Ever. The Highland Ravens will walk down the left side as 5. Remember, this one not a knockout game for the Gilded Gladiators, but an advancement game for the Highland Ravens. Hex Mambo already got it done earlier today. The Highland Ravens, the other team you're expecting to make it out of this event, but still with 7 more sets to go between Saturday and Sunday. Really anything can happen. MastKiII on the Awilix just hasn't quite found that backline burst yet. Maybe positioning aggressively outside of their own base. Gets it done. Little poke damage from Angry and in. Goes lestimics. Pillars of Agni. Deals the last bit of damage on Nakana. SCC walks forward, but we've seen this before. Are you overextending? Agni has to use the Aegis, and it's a double whirlwind of Rage and Steel from Silenced. And the Ravens, unhappy with the looks of this siege, repelled once again by the Gilded Gladiators.
Man, MastKiII, just by walking nearby, completely distracts the Highland Ravens. The rest of the Gladiators say, you're looking the wrong way, and shut them down. Kana steps too far forward. Not exactly tanky just yet.
The Ravens
Or tanky
looking
enough,
like looking like a common crow on the siege there. Are they the same bird just from...
Are ravens and crows the same bird?
I think they might be, depending on where they're from.
I'm looking at J-Mac, and he's telling me no, and that guy's from Texas, so I trust him.
Now we need an Australian's point of view.
Do they have more crows?
No, I just think they got the lowdown on wild
animals?
animals. Oh, for sure. It's a wall down from adapting and a double hammer toss. No, the Gilded Gladiators, they got their picks, but now they've stuck around and they've walked at the Ravens, and you don't have MastKiII for 55 seconds. Adapting will go
Out
out.
of range.
He'll drop down.
I was wrong.
Perfectly in range on Sotos.
Why'd I doubt him?
Nails the stun.
It's adapting.
Don't come for adapting like that.
Your veins
in
are
my
popping.
face when he's playing the Thor. I'm just that lean, Miff. I'm not doing anything.
Okay.
I'm not angry. I'm just jacked. Says adapting is another.
I'm not angry. I'm adapting.
And lestimics will drop as well. It's a killing spree for adapting, and it's a game 2 win for the Highland Ravens. And I am dizzy now at the end of the game.
Well, get
It'll
some
be a
breath
2-0
back
win.
in you, man. Toddy could keep this alive. Look how low they are.
If Toddy wins this 1v5, he'll die in the fountain, and the Highland Ravens capitalize, and they'll move on to the next round of the EU SCC Championship.
Both games go 30, and in an hour of combined gameplay, not once was it called into question who was going to win this set. The Highland Ravens looked dominant through and through, be it draft diff in game 1 or play diff in game 2.
Miff, when we made it, a full 7.5 hours on broadcast
That's not so bad.
until we shattered. Right, we were so close to getting all the way there. I'm almost proud of us.
You should be anyway.
After the long day we had. But the Highland Ravens, they get it done against the Gilded Gladiators, and that is our final game of the day. That means Miff and I, we're going to go get some fondue, maybe, and we'll go back to the desk to close out the day.
Wait, Where are they getting fondue at?
We got fondue here?
we got a fondue fountain somewhere that I'm unaware of? The answer, yes, is that Ravens are different from crows. Ravens are actually bigger than crows in size, have a larger bill as well. So the Ravens, not just the bigger bird, but the bigger team in this case, able to take a win over the Gilded Gladiators 2-0 for the number 2 seed of the EU SCC, and able to qualify themselves into the second round of play. Now they'll be joining over with Hex Mambo. Fortunate for Gilded Gladiators, or I should say fortunate for them, is their road is not over just yet, Charlie. They still have another set to play to see if they'll be making it into the second half of play, or if they're going to be the next one going home.
In Dave's defense, though, they are part of the same genus, I believe. It's just a different species. So he was close, but definitely different birds throughout. And I think the Ravens have proved they're a different beast entirely in this one, J-Mac. They were absolutely popping off, giving adapting Thor never a good look, especially in a game like this where a must-win situation, you're already down 0-1. And I think Angry on the Agni as well as a pick that we were not questioning, but curious. I was curious what was going to be happening here, and pretty much what I was assuming, trying to keep MastKiII away, providing that big burst damage from a distance. That's exactly what Agni should bring, and that's exactly what Angry did bring in this game. Sometimes getting caught out, but always doing big damage before the death.
Maybe some, at least, highlights for the Gilded Gladiators, able to keep the Ravens back a couple of times on some of these Phoenix sieges, not able to get that full commit there from the Highland Ravens, but cleaning it up once Adapting was able to kind of join in the squad, because there were a couple of times where Adapting was kind of straying off and doing his own thing. We were kind of sitting there questioning, why is Adapting at speed buff on the enemy side when everybody else is fighting Gold Fury? Why is Adapting walking to Gold Fury when he could just ult from the lane and join the fight in that regard? So a couple of questionable decisions by the Highland Ravens. Questionable decisions by all but Adapting on the Ravens.
Perfect.
And then calculated decisions by Adapting, knowing, okay, well, if I give them this death, that'll give them the confidence to step forward so my team can wipe them after.
Yeah, and that checks out because you're not allowed to question Adapting.
Can't question
made that very clear. And then, of course, Dolson came in and reimbursed it. So now that we have two great opinions there, I will never do it again. So great play there, as well as Angry on the Agni, top damage in the game. And that is what I expected, given the amount that those bomb stuns were doing. And just, Agni's got great control. Whenever you could see lestimics trying to go in, trying to use that Hades ultimate, was always met with a fair bit of fire damage coming from the Agni. So great play from the Ravens. Like I said, we expected this. Going into a matchup, this is one that the Ravens should win, but also they did have to prove that they were going to be able to wipe them. And in 2-0 fashion, looked pretty clean.
And now kind of maybe opens up the discussion, which we probably won't get to have until maybe like the third match of that second round of bracket play, considering both these teams the first ones to qualify through. I'm not exactly sure how they kind of match up in that bracket regarding there, but now it kind of comes into the question what we will get to see between these two squads. Are the Ravens, have they stepped up enough to maybe be able to beat Hex Mambo, or Hex Mambo still the top? Maybe we'll get to answer that question a little bit later on in the weekend, but for at least today, that was our fourth and final match, so we can look at what we have to see forward tomorrow. Highland Ravens, with their win, they advance to the elimination stage. They're going to be awaiting the winner of the Gilded Gladiators and Aru Scorpions to join them over on that side of the bracket. So match 10, which would be the second match tomorrow, we'll see the Gilded Gladiators and the Aru Scorpions face off to see which of those two teams is going home, which of those two teams is going to be moving on with the Highland Ravens in Group B. Over in Group A, it's a very similar story, but with a couple of different teams here. Hex Mambo, the first ones to qualify to the elimination stage. Niflheim Wargs versus Personnel. The SOC number 2 seed from that region is going to be over there facing off against the Wargs. We'll see if the number 2 SOC can find another upset. Remember, they beat the number 4 SC seed earlier with 6 Fairman. Now they're going up against the number 6. So arguably, Trelly, should be a better matchup for Personnel. If they were already able to beat somebody who was better than the Wargs by standings-wise, but it's also a team that did get beat by the Wargs earlier. So I think a lot of interest on that very first matchup there, match number 9 between the Wargs and Personnel, to see who joins Hex Mambo in the second half of play for elimination. For everything that's worth it for me, Trelly, aside from obvious what we're going to see in the next half of the brackets, I think that's the one I'm keeping my most eyes on.
Yeah, and the fact that the Wargs were able to take a game off of Hex Mambo, whereas Personnel, when they faced Hex Mambo, They clicked the F6 button twice.
Twice.
So it's going to be an interesting one for sure. And I think Personnel coming off of a win, you know, just beating the Styx Ferryman as well, should be feeling high-spirited. So I imagine that confidence alone should be able to make them play a lot better than they were at the beginning of this tournament.
Yeah, I think with Personnel finding their win today, getting a little bit of wind back under their sails, should be some fun matchups tomorrow. 2 teams going home tomorrow, 2 teams moving on with the other ones that have already qualified. Should be a very fun Saturday. You're not going to miss out. Tune in at 11 a.m. Eastern Time Zone to see what all goes through. On behalf of myself, casters, and Shirley specifically along with me right now, production, everyone else behind the scenes, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.